Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 303 Metzler Street here in Molalla. We are located at the front of the house. We're basically right between the garage door and the front door of the house. If you lose track of the clean out, it sits just a foot to the right of the hose bib here. Got a 4-inch cast iron clean out as our point of access. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water is currently running. We are zeroed out and off we go. There's a couple joints in here I want to take a look at as we come back out. That one there's got some exposed fern co, which in many cases doesn't actually mean much. You can often have a little bit of slipping at a joint. They're fern coat anyway. It's a rubber sleeve that joins the two pieces of pipe together without actually separating to the point where it opens up to the ground. But we just transitioned there over to concrete pipe. That looks like transite, also known as asbestos concrete. All right, got some roots punching through here right as the line transitions over to 3034 PVC. And then right back into transite again, lots of roots there. It's a Franken line. We got all the different pipe materials in here. Now we're into standard PVC. It looks like we're going to do a straight vertical drop here. Likely down into the top of the main. It's always hard to see in these ones because water is just there it is right there. That's tying into the top of the main. We're going to shut the water off here. I'm going to triangle locate. I may have to wait until I pull the top of the drop. It can be difficult to locate a camera when it's in this vertical dive like this, but we'll get it hunted down. And then we'll give it a good look over as we come back. There's certainly issues going on. I mean, the line is functioning, but you've got plenty of root intrusions that can cause issues. We'll get a better view of the condition of some of these different pipe materials, especially the old pipe materials here in a moment. Alright, so as you look at the house from the street, facing the house from the road, that's how I describe everything. Line exits out pretty much right in the middle of the front of the house. It then cuts over under the driveway and then turns and runs up kind of the left side edge of the driveway, and it just gets barely into the road. The main lateral in this case looks like it's offset to this side of the road, just a few feet out into the roadway. Alrighty. And the plus side with this line, I mean, it's kind of a unique thing, is that other than a walkway here, I guess there is a little bit of concrete that resides over it. The vast majority of the line here looks like even the driveway isn't concreted yet. So that makes for a little bit simpler repair. So as we pull back out here, this is a notoriously very difficult configuration to get a nice clear view of because the water droplets dangle off the end of the camera lens. We're in a straight vertical drop right now. So I'll do my darndest here, but I mean, the only way to get a just absolute perfect view of something like this just about is to have the line bone dry. We're getting a decent view though. This is all updated PVC right here. That vertical drop there looks good, drains nice. So you've got dirt entering into the joint right here. This is partly why this joint is dropping. And unfortunately, when you get that situation like this where the joint is offset, it's also compromised and open to the ground, that creates for a progressive scenario where the line will slowly but surely undermine the soil. It's sucking dirt through it, and it eventually erodes the support out from underneath the pipe. It can also do it over top the line. So it's not just an issue of the line slowly settling. If you wait long enough, it's impossible to predict how long it will take, but eventually that piece of PVC there will probably continue to drop until that starts to close off more and more. It's already done so a bit there by about an inch. So that is something I do recommend repairing, and amongst other things in the line here. So up to the PVC there, looking good. I'm sorry, from the so from this point out is looking good. I apologize, I got that mixed up. Alrighty, we are about 3 foot 8 inches deep here. This is right where the driveway meets the street. Essentially everything from this back, other than maybe a little bit of a walkway here, the line's under dirt, and it's quite shallow. 3 foot 8 inches deep is, for being 40 feet out like this, is very shallow. It's not uncommon for lines to be 8 feet deep by this point, especially when they're that close to the road. So I did put an X marking down right where that hits. The city has done a marking already. My locate's coming in about a foot or so to the side of theirs. They're not always using an actual locator. Sometimes they're going based off of measurements, and sometimes the measurements aren't terribly good, but, you know, not to say that my locator couldn't be off slightly, but just be aware of that. So you've got roots all the way out here just prior to the main. So we'll see how the gradation on this line looks here. You've certainly got some wonky joints, but if the grade is decent throughout, you may be able to do something like an epoxy liner on this, which is trenchless. That's a bummer there. Those roots punch back through that new stuff. And those transition joints, any transition, whether it's a modern piping, ABS to PVC, especially old pipe to new pipe, they're infinitely weaker joints to root intrusions than any other joint in your line. So that's the one reason I really don't love spot repairs on older lines, is especially with roots. The roots often find their way back through very, very shortly thereafter. So right here, this joint has also dropped by about an inch. It's separated as well. You know, if you could line through that, though, you've got enough opening there. My concern is integrity and how this will hold up over time. There's no buildup here, but you certainly have a compromised joint. You know, if a liner company thinks they can line through this, you've still got a 4-inch wide opening by about a 3-inch tall opening there. I don't have too much issue with that. The liner will retain that same diameter and shape to that, but it'll seal the joint up and you'll have a nice smooth pipe. There's enough going on here considering its age that, you know, at this point, we'll see what the rest of the line looks like, but when you start getting enough stuff going on with an old line like this, spot repairing does not make sense any longer. It just becomes a Frankenstein line you have to sit and spot repair over and over and over again. It just doesn't make sense. You see what happens to spot repairs up ahead there, where roots are finding their way through very shortly after it gets repaired. There, and I push back out here. I forgot to put a marking down. The locates in the driveway, it's very likely you're going to have to redo them. The surface is so loose that the spray paint, just the blasting power of the spray paint, blows all the dirt around, and the paint hardly sticks to anything. So I'll try and take some photos, but that's going to likely need relocating. Got about 4 feet there where I was in the transite just before the root intrusions. Alright, still right around the 3 foot 9, 4 foot deep realm here. You've got quite a lot of Fernco exposed there. That joint there is separated. It doesn't appear open to the ground right now, but it appears pulled apart. All right, this juncture here, only 1 foot 6 inches. We're just about to leave the driveway and come into the kind of the front yard area. So, especially at depths like that, you know, the cast iron here up until about the very end of it has fared fairly well. Given how accessible this line is, though, how shallow it is, you got another separation right here too. This is why, I mean, you couple everything together, the age of everything, the issues going on up ahead of it. In my opinion, I will recommend a full update to the exterior sewer line here. At the very least, the major stuff that needs repair work, is essentially from just prior to the cast iron transition to concrete to the transition to PVC right at the end of the driveway. So that's my 2 cents on it. I mean, especially when you got a line here, I'll do another locate just out from this walkway. But I mean, you're barely, I don't think, much more than about a foot or so deep here. Yeah, 1 foot 3 inches deep there. We're just about a foot and a half out from the walk, coming out underneath the walkway. All right, the only spot here I'm going to avoid putting any paint down right now is the walkway itself. In the event it doesn't turn into a full update. All right, bear with me a second here. I gotta get some junk off my camera lens. So luckily the line goes under very, very little concrete. At least the repair area does. And I'll show that with the camera here in just a moment. So right as the line makes its turn here, this is just prior to the line leaving out from underneath the concrete. And then right about at this point here, just beyond that turn, you're out from underneath it. So, you know, I don't have too much issue if you lopped everything off right as the line exits out from underneath the walkway. It's just, if you're going to do this thing, you know, ideally you do it right and just update all of it back to the clean out, but I realize you're going to have a little added fun there having to deal with this concrete walkway. But at these depths, to me, it would be absolutely silly to not take everything back to at least this point right here to the concrete edge. The line turns, and it bypasses this part of the concrete right here. It just shoots straight off into the driveway, jumps to the other side of it, turns, and goes out to the street. So your major issues start right in about the middle of the driveway and extend to the street edge. Ideally, though, given it's only 1 foot 3 inches deep here back by the walkway, it's an incredibly shallow line. Most repair guys, I mean, that's just not adding a whole lot on there as far as repairs go. You're not digging 6 to 8 feet deep here. It's very shallow. So I recommend a full update to the exterior sewer line, a combination of things. Obviously, the cast iron pipe here, the majority of it on the outside anyway, is functioning and is in reasonable condition for its age. It's the full mill deal. It's the fact that you've got about half the line is very much in need of repair. And the beginning half of it it's old, and it's a good time to just do this, especially when you consider how shallow it is and the fact that almost the whole thing is under just dirt. So that's my 2 cents on that. I recommend a full update and a rescope afterwards, and you want to do your rescope after the line is buried, not beforehand. You won't catch any settling issues. Everything's in theory up until you bury the sewer line. So you want to make sure you're rescoping this after everything is buried. If you take the repair all the way back to the clean out, what I would do is compact the ground, get it ready for concrete pour. That way you've put pretty much all the weight on it you're going to. If everything looks good at that point, then you're safe to pour your concrete over it. And this is something you certainly want to do if you ever have plans on paving this driveway. You got to make sure this thing gets updated because it's going to fall apart on you in the not too distant future, and I don't want to see anyone tearing up new driveway or something like that over that.